when you talk about the leaders of NDC, we have to talk about Lufthansa.
Yeah.
Right? Lufthansa has been, touting their success in NDC. They're now saying 20 to 30% of their transactions are happening on the NDC. Why do you think there's such a lead in this area? Is it just their resource commitment, or they're actually seeing the ROI? That's why they're investing so much more.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the reason why Lufthansa is so far along is because they committed to a strategy. In the early days of adding surcharge to their content for the GDS, it didn't get a lot of traction outside of the Germany point of sale, or their strong markets for their group of carriers, and they suffered. Like, I think they lost market share. I bet they were very committed to the long-term vision and need. So they just kept doubling down and saying, like, if that's not enough, I'm going to keep going more. And to find out what those levers were going to be to push adoption in the channel. And they were quite successful at it. And they built a very strong team, and they committed to it as an organization. I think that was probably their key to success. Another piece is the early adopters, right? So those that adopted saw transactions grow. They stole share because they had cheaper prices and things like that. So it was good that they actually had some adoption moving over. Good for Lufthansa to show them that, yes, it can happen. And from a market perspective, everyone said, like, oh my gosh, I'm losing share, or I'm, don't have as many bookings. So it created sort of an impetus, a momentum to others to come on board.
Well, it's not easy to be a guinea pig to start with, right?
Yeah, especially with NDC, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are seeing a few airlines, including Lufthansa and Emirates. They're trying to leveraging the surcharge to force NDC adoption to some degree. And what do you see the risks are there for these kind of strategy, especially against travel agencies?
Yeah. So this is really a carrier or an airline specific type of question. And it really relates to just how large, or how much presence, how much volume that distribution that airline can manage, rely on third party for distribution for. So if you're Lufthansa and you're a very large carrier in Europe, you probably have stronger mechanisms to apply and use that as an incentive versus a very small airline in a market that relies heavily on third-party distribution to drive volume. So it is very much a carrier by carrier sort of answer. The risk is that you do it, you make this huge technology investment, right? Expecting to have an ROI recouped within year 1, year 2, year 3, whatever that is. And because you don't have the ability to shift distribution, and your board is asking you where the transactions that you told me were to come. So if the travel agents don't adopt it, no amount of surcharge or investment is going to help you. There have been a couple that have crashed and burned in the earlier years where they didn't have that piece thought through well enough.
Right. Let's flip that question the other way around.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing exclusive fares now being on NDC, right? And that's going to impact the business model for travel agencies. So how can travel agencies themselves figure out a way to compete in this new shifting landscape?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all know content is king, right? Low price wins. So depending on your marketing channel, how you acquire your customers, it's to your benefit to make sure that you've got the lowest priced, best content out there. So to a large extent is just how good are you at actually changing your technology platform to be able to go out and acquire the best content and making it available to your customer. The other piece is really more economics, right? So there's different forms of incentives that are out there for travel agents, and it's going to be, do I try to make more money per transaction, or do I want to have more transactions going through my channel. And it really is sort of that give and take that you as a travel agent will individually come to find out is what's more important to your business model. And different OTAs have a very different level of exposure than a brick and mortar type travel agent. That's why you see more adoption on the OTA side. Customers are more price sensitive.
Yeah, they're more agile and willing to rebalance.
Yeah. Also, they're more technology focused.
That's
true. So it's easier for them to make these pivots.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I briefly touched on about American Airlines, where they had that delay.
Yes.
Of 2023. So, what can you say about that, especially in these large scale implementations?
Yeah. I have worked with American Airlines for a long time. Very long give and take in that relationship, even before NDC. And they're a great carrier, right? Sort of like Lufthansa, they've been trying to change to the distribution model. And I think what happened with American Airlines is they had a lot of success in one channel, the OTA channel, and they didn't understand the implications of trying to have a huge pivot to force NDC to a channel that wasn't, where the product was not fit for purpose. TMCs are still waiting for features. It's really hard to say, like, hey, not only am I forcing you to go down the NDC path, but you've got to give up economics. You've got to give up capabilities. It's a pretty big shift. It's a very high cost to the TMC. So they really struggled. TMC said, we're just not going to book American. Like, if you don't want to give us the content, great. That's a carrier like American that relies so much on corporate travel. It was a big deal. So I think they learned their lesson. Carriers learned from American. I think the next piece is probably, as an airline, you probably don't want to make enemies of friends. And I think that they probably pushed, too hard even on the OTAs. It says, like, hey, we know you made these massive investments. We're going to also make it so it's not as rewarding for you either. And I think they sort of had two strikes against them.
Yeah. But it also shows the balance of power, right? It's not the airline can dictate everything. Right?
Indeed.
You have to listen to your customers and get their feedback and say how things go.